This is Marty Wilson. It's about 1:10 on October 25th of the afternoon. It's a Thursday today. I'm sitting in my office, and I have on the phone with me Sarah Ferrebee, who is in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And we're here to talk about Sterling Strauser. But before we do, Sarah, we have to talk about this release form. I would just like a verbal release from you saying that you agree to give this interview to East Stroudsburg University. Is that okay with you?
Indeed it is.
Okay, well, very nice talking to you. And the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? When did you move to the Poconos, those kinds of things?
I moved to the Poconos the year of the flood. Now, doesn't that tell you something? I moved to 274 Braeside Avenue in East Stroudsburg, coming from Honesdale, and I was born in Reading. But I will tell you this, it was the best move I ever made. East Stroudsburg is so close to my heart, and that was 1955. I left in 1990, so I have been an East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg rooter. I'm a fan, let me put it that way, of the Poconos and all of the wonderful people I met. I ended up, just by a fluke, having a radio program on WVPO, WSBT for 14 years. And because of the radio program and the East Stroudsburg Methodist Church and the wonderful Reverend Eaton, which so many people remember with such joy, I got into all kinds of things. I was one of the directors of the Sesquicentennial, along with some of the most marvelous people you will ever know: Marty Baldwin, Les Abeloff, George Mensch, and Les Pearson. That was the committee. I was the lady on the committee because I'm sure because of the publicity and the radio program. I was the director also of the wonderful Laurel Festival, which we had for 8 years, which brought beautiful, outstanding college students to the Poconos for a week to be feted at all the resorts. That meant that I got to meet all of the wonderful people who were the backbone of the Poconos travel situation, talking about John Crandall at Pocono Manor. I'm sure that a lot of people remember Bill Mallison at Skytop, and Walter Fossa at PMI, and Eric Danish at Brookdale on the Lake. And one of my most favorite people, and all of these men would agree with me because they all thought he was wonderful, was Emil Wagner at Mount Airy Lodge. He was a saint. He was a wonderful person. He did more things for more people that nobody knows about than you can possibly imagine. I'm sure I've forgotten one or two of the big resorts. I'm doing, oh my goodness sakes, the marvelous Fred Waring at Shawnee on the Delaware. In fact, my daughter got into music and taught music because of Mr. Waring. She called him Uncle Fred. And of course that brings me around to Mrs. Alex Bensinger, who is now watching over and taking such superb care of her wonderful husband, Alex Bensinger, and along with a lot of other wonderful people. But Ruth Sibley Bensinger is my best friend in the Poconos, along with Jean Ducklow. And they're the ones that are left. That's the hard part. But anyway, I worked for Wyckoff's department store. I did lots of fashion shows, and I just had a wonderful... I directed in fact, that was right at the college. In fact, we were in the old Zimbar Gymnasium, and Mr. Sills was so much of a help. He was, I think, one of the head coaches, football coach or something. My mind is not quite as sharp, but I remember him as well as I could. And Dr. Kaler was the president of the college at that time, and we did the antique show, which benefited I was the director of that for 14 years, and we held it until you put a new floor down in that gymnasium, and then we had to remove our hosts. We used to cover the floor, but they did the gym over, and we went to the high school, and that's where Carl Secor came in, because Carl and Ernie Farmer gave us permission to move over to the East Stroudsburg High School gymnasium. That's enough about me, for goodness sake.
Well, you've been a very busy person.
I wasn't there.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you for a second?
wonderful. Oh, I forgot the Pocono Playhouse. I was there for 28 years doing interviews on opening night, and then the last 7 years of that, I was the publicity director for the Playhouse. So, I mean, I was in the middle of everything, for goodness sake.
All right.
I had a daughter, a son, and a most marvelous husband. So that takes care of me. Now, let's get to Sterling.
Yeah, let's talk about Sterling. How did you meet Sterling?
Just because we heard that he was a marvelous artist, and my husband and I both enjoyed art. And somehow or other, we found our way to Analomic Street. And there we were with Sterling and Dorothy in a house that was a mini museum. Nobody knew it. In fact, one day, one of the most famous artists in the world, Jack Savitsky, came in the back door, and Sterling says, "Come on in here, Jack. I want you to meet Sally." I mean, his work is in the American Folk Art Museum, along with Sterling and Dorothy's, I'm sure. And you know, these were most remarkable people with such talent. You'd walk in there, there'd be a painting sitting aside of the wall, sitting against the wall drying. Dorothy was sitting there doing these remarkable hookings, which she only drew the center figure. In other words, whatever it was, either a balloon or an animal or a rooster or whatever, she'd only draw that, and the rest she'd do freehand. And she was just absolutely not to be believed. The two of them belonged together, let me tell you. They bounced off each other with their talent, and that house was magical. People came from all over the world. Nobody ever knew, because they were art collectors and they wanted the best, and Sterling had a collection of his own that was priceless. I'm sure it is now in museums. But anyway, that little house was just magical. That's all I can say. That's the only word for it. You walk in there, and if you had a bad day, you didn't have a bad day when you walked out. You usually walked out with a painting or a hooking, and the joy of being with those two wonderful people.
So you just knocked on the door one day, or had you been introduced to him before?
I can't remember, you know. I can't remember who took us to Sterling. We knew so many people. It could have been Peter Salmon. There's another one. I went to an art exhibit of his at the Hadassah, the beautiful temple, and they had an artist day, and we bought some paintings of Peter Salmon's that day. It could have been that we went to an art exhibit. I know Sterling had a beautiful one down at Duto Museum in Delaware Water Gap one day, and that is where we could have met him there. I cannot remember, but if you loved art and you loved Sterling, and the same thing with Peter, they would just say, "Oh, we are, come see us. Come see us." And of course Sterling wanted everybody to come to the house, because he just is so proud of what he did, and he was just so remarkable, and so was she. But I think that's easily how I could have met them, just going to art exhibitions in the Poconos, and they had art that they were showing, and we loved them, both of them. They were wonderful.
Did you go back to
Courthouse Square, the ones that they used to have around the courthouse on a Sunday afternoon? People would bring their art and sit there, and people would just walk by, and very, very seldom did somebody not go out with something. I know Jack bought a painting, and that is sitting right down in the living room now with that wonderful, now there's a name, there it hangs, and I look at it every day. And the little German painter, Jack saw him painting it and said, "Oh my goodness, I should be able to think of his name. That's awful, I'll have to let you know." But he was one of our better artists too. I mean, we just, the Poconos were full of people. And Ed Dreby probably did more to further art, because he had an art gallery actually in Pocono Produce, and he was a great collector of paintings, he and Mary. So I mean, and a great beneficial to many, many things in the Poconos, in addition to having very good food out there. And they're still there.
Yeah.
And Rosemary's still there doing her thing, so God bless her.
So had you been to his house more than once, or just that one time?
What was that?
Did you go to Sterling's house several times, or just once?
Going to where? I missed the word.
Sterling's house. Did you go to his house more than once? Or?
Oh, my Lord. We go all the time. In fact, I have a marvelous story. My husband was ill for 2 years with bone cancer, and he was the last year was confined to the house. I could go into a whole thing about the hospital. That's why anything I did for the hospital, I would be thrilled at best to be asked, because they did so much for us. They were wonderful. But anyway, this particular year, Jack was failing, slipping. Hospice was there, and they were, I rave about people that are like this. And I came home. I came home from John Adson, my son, sent me out of the house. He said, "Mother, you have not gone out of this house for too long." He said, "Do me a favor. Do me a favor. I am here. Daddy has been sleeping for 3 days. Please go out and see Mrs. Sibley, who is now Mrs. Bensinger. Have a little lunch and go see Sterling." That's what Sterling and Dorothy. That's what we thought of them. They were family. I did as my son told me, and when I came home, I had bought the painting that stood against the wall. It is hanging in the hallway down here. And I went to Sterling, and he said, "Now listen." I said, "Oh, this is up Sterling. I'm taken away with this. This is absolute peonies and daylilies." And he brought it out to the car, and it was wet. And he said, "Sally, you take this home and live with it. Now, if you don't like it, you can bring it back." I said, "Sterling, I'm never going to part with this." That is the painting my husband bought me, because when I got home, he had about 4 hours to live.
Okay.
And the wonderful Lavina Kemp, he was at the college too, Dr. Kemp. His wife was with hospice. She was superb. And she said, Daddy is going to slip away tonight. Don't worry about it. All of the lights have gone out in his house. That's the way she put it.
Wow.
And she said, I said, "I have something I bought, Lavina. Let me bring it in. This is the last painting Daddy bought me, and it's Sterling's." And she said, "Oh, what a lovely thing to have." For the very last thing he bought me was that painting. I'll never part with it. So you see, it was we go every month. If it you have to do Sterling and Dorothy. You knock on the door. If they were always there. I don't know when they went out. Maybe they went out to buy food or something. I don't know. But they were always at home. And you walk in that funny little house, and there they were, smiling. And Sterling, they were just adorable. And there sat Dorothy with her hookings. It was an experience that if you didn't have it, I'm sorry. I really am sorry, because it was something that was just out of this world. They were out of this world people, and I know wherever they are, they're painting and hooking, doing up a storm, that's for sure. I'm positive of that.
Was it did they work together when you went in to buy a painting? I mean, did Dorothy get involved in the process?
Dorothy was a bit, I don't remember. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I am very, very sorry. I am apologizing. Dorothy did watercolors. Dorothy did watercolors of flowers. I still have 3 of those. They are, they're Dorothy. They're not a bit like Sterling. They're Dorothy's little flowers. And some of them weren't so little. She did big bouquets of people. A lot of Dorothy's hanging all over Monroe County, along with a lot of Sterlings. When Dr. Jordan had his gold medal dinner, the very first one they had was at Buck Hill Falls. At the inn. Oh, God, love it. Anyway, to make a long story short, I decided to surprise, because Dr. Jordan was a pupil of Sterling's. He would go and take painting lessons. That was relaxation for him. And he had a painting that Sterling did of him that hung in his library in his white jacket. It was strictly Sterling, but it looked exactly like Klaus. And when they said they wanted me to chair this dinner, I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to surprise Klaus and have the entire ballroom hung with Sterling Strauser paintings. And I went all over the county to people that I knew did not tell Klaus. But I went to the house one day with Charlie Reeves, who was in with the college on a flatbed truck. And I said, I would like to be able to borrow your painting from your library, Klaus. And he looked at me and he said, what for? I said, well, I can't tell you. I want to borrow it for a reason. And he said, okay. Charlie Reeves came in with the boys from the football team, put it on the flatbed truck. I wrapped it up and took it over took it to the inn. And when Klaus walked in that night to that formal dinner, everybody dressed to the nines. I know Summers and Joan lent me several of theirs. I can't tell you how many people I bought paintings from. And there he walked in, and over the head table was the painting of Klaus. And he said, now I know why you wanted the painting. And Sterling and Dorothy came to that dinner. They did not socialize very much, but I told him, you must be there for Klaus. So they came. And Sterling was thrilled. He walked all around and said, you got these from, I said, I got these from everybody. I remember Dr. Mary Hunsicker lent us some. Oh, it was wonderful. But he was so happy. He was so happy looking at all his, he could be happy looking at his work. His work was happy work.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. What does his work say to you? I mean, what's special about his work?
His work, it just makes you feel good. First of all, he brings flowers to life and brings the things that he loved to life in such a way. It'd be his wonderful little paintings of horses and racing. I mean, he just, you really have a problem trying to describe Sterling and Dorothy, because they were one-of-a-kind people. There was nothing like them. Nobody liked them. And talent, oh my Lord, it was coming out of their ears. And everything he did with joy. And it showed up in the paintings. What they did, they loved. They put the love into the work. And the minute you saw it, it didn't matter what it was, there was something there that made you want to own it. It could be Crystal Street in the snow. It could be a sunset up in the mountains with the mountains in the background. I still have hanging on the stairway Crystal Street in the snow. It is wonderful. And right in my room I'm looking at now are 3 tulips in a very beautiful vase. It's hanging, it's not 6 feet from me. So it doesn't matter what it is. It was a Sterling. And that's what made it special. I did not get to that wonderful exhibition. I don't know why. Some kind of a thing kept me from getting to the Reading Museum, because that's where I was born, to see Jim Acidic's beautiful thing. But I got all the information, and they sent me the brochure. And as I say, there are just some things that some people who are on this earth, and God sends them here for some reason, and Sterling and Dorothy were sent here to make people happy with things in their home that they could look at and love. And that's all I can say about Sterling. His lovely little smile, his little twinkly eyes, and Dorothy with that beautiful sweet face and her gray hair pulled back from her face, and they never changed. They never got old. I tell you, they were just something about them. Something about them.
Well, they sound like special people.
They were God's special gift to Monroe County. That's what they were.
Huh. Well, is there anything else that, other questions I should have asked you, or any other stories you have?
No, not a thing. You did a beautiful job. Now, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you do at the college?
I teach history. I'm in the history department.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
Yes, I am lucky.
Oh, you are so lucky. That was my favorite subject in high school.
Oh, no kidding.
Terrible at mathematics, but history and English I just love.
Well, me too.
I couldn't wait to get to class. I'll bet your classes feel the same way.
Well, I hope.
You're in one of those new buildings?
Well, we're in Stroud. They tore down Stroud, and then they built the new one, and that's where I am. So. And
let me tell you something. When I was home, this was probably in 2002 or 3. They were rehearsing for Music in the Mountains, and Ruth had to be, this is Mrs. Bensinger, had to be at a rehearsal. And Buzz said, while Ruth is rehearsing, I'm going to drive you around the college, Sally. And of course, I remember living on Braeside Avenue. John went to the little school that they had on the corner there when he was in kindergarten and first grade. I can even remember Mrs. Stimson and all those wonderful teachers. Goodness, I should remember all of them. But I remember the college as it was way back when. And there's somebody working here on the island in a beautiful nursery with its own store who went to the normal school.
Huh.
And she happened, she said, where are you from, Mrs. Ferrebee? I was shopping there one day. I said, I'm from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. I said, I went to, she said, oh, you didn't. I went to East Stroudsburg College. I said, you didn't. I said, well, let me tell you something. You wouldn't believe it. When Buzz Bensinger drove me around the college, I was so glad I had a chance to talk to Les Abelhoff because we've been friends forever. And I said, Lester, Buzz drove me around the college, and I said, I cannot believe you are something else. You sort of spent a little money over there, didn't you? Very modestly. He just smiled at me. The college has turned out to be one of the most beautiful universities, that's why I go back so far, remember colleges, I said, it is absolutely gorgeous. All those buildings, the campus is beautiful, is so well kept, and you still have that aura of yesterday when you walk in and look at the way that it looks when you drive in.
Yeah, you're right, I agree.
The people at the college have done a fabulous, fabulous job, and I'm so glad you're there. And I must say this, I just said earlier when we spoke that I remember your grandfather at the YMCA because he came on the thing on the radio program for several things that were going on, and he was the most wonderful man, so it doesn't surprise me one bit that his grandson is at the college and adding much, much, much of his knowledge and his caring where I know it's working for these young people fortunate enough to be there. I hope you don't mind to give you a compliment.
Well, you're very kind. You're very kind.
No, I'm not very kind. I'm very truthful. I've been around too long not to be. This has been such a joy.
Yeah, this has been a very, very nice experience for me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. I'm so glad I'm not getting home anymore. The train trip from I don't fly. I do on my own, in my head, but it's got to be too much. 13 hours on the train, and there's some dear soul, and I could name all the people who were so dear to me to come down to Philadelphia to get me, to bring me to the Poconos. Just got too much.
Sure.
And it was a long, long trip, and then we had to be bothered to take me back again. I couldn't do that to people. There were so many lovely people that did this for me, and but I gave up in 2008, and but I miss everybody, and everybody that is still around that remembers, because they'd have to go back a long way. I thank you so much for listening.
Well, thanks very much for talking.
It's my pleasure, and as I say, I'm sorry I don't get home anymore so I can meet you personally, but I have an idea. You have your grandfather there, and that's a very good thing to have.
Right.
God bless you.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.